Good morning, Europe. Thanks for starting your day with us. I'm Anka Ula, and these are your headlines this Tuesday, June 14th.
Russian forces continue their offensive towards Severodonetsk, destroying all access bridges to the already nearly flattened city. The UK's controversial plan to deport its asylum seekers to Rwanda is set to go ahead today after a court appeal fails. And in Belgium, beer brewers are struggling to produce their most famous drink due to rising costs and supply chain disruptions.
All three bridges to the embattled eastern city of Severodonetsk have been destroyed as Russian forces continue their offensive, where they're making slow but steady progress. On the other side, Ukrainian troops are suffering terrifying losses in this decisive battle, according to the country's president. Faced with Russian artillery firepower, Ukrainian forces admitted on Monday they have abandoned the center of Severodonetsk. Pro-Russian separatists say the last enemy division are now pinned down and have a choice of surrendering or dying. The Battle of Severodonetsk is similar to that of Mariupol, which eventually fell to the Russian army after intense fighting and heavy casualties. In Donetsk, a shelling of a market left 3 people dead and 4 injured. Pro-Russian separatists and the Ukrainian army are blaming each other for the attack. After the fall of Severodonetsk, Moscow could set force for Kramatorsk, an essential step toward conquering the entire Donbas basin. Meanwhile, Amnesty International is accusing Russia of using cluster bombs on the city of Kharkiv. Use of such ammunitions is internationally banned in civilian areas and amount to a war crime.
Tensions between London and Brussels are rising again after the UK government published plans to ditch parts of the post-Brexit deal it agreed with the EU in 2019. If adopted, the plans to unilaterally change the Northern Ireland Protocol would make it easier for some goods to flow from Great Britain to the province. Brussels says any changes would have to be made within the framework.
Now, of course, we remain open to negotiations with the EU, and I would rather achieve this through a negotiated settlement. But the fact is, the EU have refused to change the protocol, which is causing these problems on trade, on tax, and more broadly in Northern Ireland.
However, the EU Commission claims the UK's actions would breach international law.
Renegotiating of the protocol is unrealistic. No workable alternative solution has been found to this delicate, long-negotiated balance. Any renegotiations would simply bring further legal uncertainty for the people and businesses in Northern Ireland. For these reasons, the European Union will not renegotiate the protocol.
And the Prime Minister of the Republic of Ireland has also voiced concerns.
We do not accept the presentation by the British government and certain ministers to the effect that the European Union is inflexible and so forth. That is not the case, most definitively is not the case. And the European Union has been very proactive now for the last year in endeavouring to seek solutions to issues around the operation of the protocol.
The protocol was aimed at avoiding the return of a physical border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, which some observers say would undermine the Good Friday peace agreement. The EU says it will soon publish new proposals to iron out practical problems thrown up by the accord.
Well, huge frustration and anger here in Brussels at the UK's decision to press ahead with that legislation overriding the EU-UK withdrawal agreement, the protocol piece within that, which protects peace in Northern Ireland and keeps Northern Ireland within the EU's single market. The EU's position is that it's unnecessary, that it's a breach of international law, a huge breach of trust as well. The EU's position is that the UK should get back to the table and resolve the issues. If not, Brussels is willing to start infringement proceedings against the UK as early as this week, possibly next week. There's a range of areas that the EU is willing to push for, which ultimately could result in the suspension of the EU-UK trade agreement, the TCA. But before then, there will be infringement proceedings. There would also be keeping the UK locked out of the EU's Horizon Europe research programme. That would be hugely problematic. But what's interesting, what I've heard from sources, is that all EU 27 member states are very much unified on the importance of reacting to the UK's decision this time. Shona Murray, Euronews, Brussels.
The British government's controversial plan to deport asylum seekers of various nationalities to Rwanda is set to go ahead today after an appeal court refused to block the policy. On Monday, hundreds gathered outside the Home Office to protest against the move after the last gasp legal bid to stop the flights failed. A three-judge panel at the Court of Appeal in London refused a legal bid filed by immigration rights advocates and public employee unions that sought to block the deportation flights temporarily while the court considered whether the government's policy was legal. It's been widely criticised as inhumane and illegal ever since April, when UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson announced the plan as a way to deter people from risking their lives by paying smugglers to take them to Britain in leaky inflatable boats. The first flight is due to take off for Kigali this evening, but all but 8 of the 37 migrants originally told they would be on the flight to Rwanda have had their tickets cancelled. The UN's High Commissioner for Refugees has condemned the policy.
This is all wrong. This is all wrong, this deal. You know, it is the foundation of the right to asylum that people that are on a country's territory, especially a country that is a signatory to the convention and has the institutions to deal with that, you know, to export that responsibility to another country runs contrary to any notion of responsibility sharing.
Meanwhile, the deal appears to be good news for hotels in Rwanda, some of which have been selected to house the asylum seekers while the applications are assessed.
Wait. Although organizer Arnold Schwarzenegger is only taking part virtually at his Austrian World Summit, the top environmental leaders from Europe and the USA will meet in person here in Vienna. Vice President of the EU Commission Frans Timmermans and the Director of the US Environmental Protection Agency, Michael S. Regan. Environmental activists are not expecting any specific results. After all, this is primarily a networking and awareness raising event. Nevertheless, the 5th Vienna Climate Conference has become one of the largest climate meetings in the world. And thus, the Fridays for Future movement, for example, hopes for some progress in the compensation of those affected by climate change. In other words, loss and damage. One of the main issues is, of course, the still dominant use of fossil fuels. Many activists are calling for a comprehensive gas and oil embargo against war aggressor Russia. Others raise the issue of Europe's role in the extraction of fossil fuels in Africa. But Schwarzenegger wants to achieve one thing above all: a change in thinking among the world's population. To achieve this, he often uses practical examples in order to reach people from all social backgrounds. For instance, instead of plastic tableware, people should use ceramics. And in the supermarket, regional products are significantly more eco-friendly than overseas items. However, due to rising inflation, some consumers do not always have a choice. Another area where politicians are called upon to act. Johannes Bleschberger, Euronews, Vienna.